These two friends were going on a camping trip deep in the Appalachian Mountains, hoping to find some peace and tranquility in nature. Everything was calm, with fresh air and quiet surroundings. But suddenly, things started to take a bizarre turn. They found what appeared to be a deserted settlement, abandoned over time. The buildings were dilapidated, half collapsed, and didn't look like they had ever been touched in years. But there was this cold, creeping feeling of people, a wild, untamed kind of people that seemed to live behind the shadows of these crumbling structures. These were no ordinary hikers or campers. We are talking about what some called feral people, often rumored to be descendants of lost settlers or people who had completely cut themselves off from society. Feral people were known to live off the land, sometimes in isolation, and often to behave more like animals than humans. They live away from modern civilization, and sometimes in caves or deserted buildings. Often they are reported to be hostile toward strangers. The two friends continued to trek through this creepy town and began to feel a little uneasy because they didn't have the feeling of being alone. But the feral people appeared to be tracking them where they went in complete silence. As nightfall loomed, the friends realized for the first time how dangerous that was. The feral men didn't just hang around. They waited, lurked into darkness, and struck. Things quickly got worse. One of the friends notices, at one point, an odd figure behind a tree, almost blending into the shadows, as if trying to hide but still close enough to keep an eye on them. The friends start running, desperate for safety, with the sound of footsteps chasing them through the wilderness. As night fully descends, the feral people make their move again, almost as if they were hunting them. Just when the friends think they can't take it anymore, the sun begins to rise, and the feral people retreat into their caves, leaving the two men in a state of shock and disbelief. It was daylight that saved them that day, as the wild beings of the mountains seemed to have only ventured out at night. Fifth Halloween night. In October 2022, these men set out on a Halloween night ghost hunt in the woods. For weeks, he had been getting ready for this adventure, planning to document strange occurrences and maybe even catch a glimpse of the paranormal. First impressions weren't too bad, just spook woods, after all. But things changed when he took a closer look and began noticing something off. A bizarre, moving light way into the trees. At first, he brushed it off as his own pranking eyes. Halloween night would do that to anyone, right? But when that light moved around, he became uneasy. As he headed deeper into the woods to check it out, he couldn't help but have the feeling that something was not right. He felt that gut-sinking feeling as if he wasn't alone. The more he pushed into the woods, the more that feeling grew to the point where something seemed to be stalking him. The group, now uncomfortable, broke out their flashlights and began to scan the area. And what they found next was by no means expected. In a little distance, they saw a dark, pale figure standing still among the trees. It wasn't like any ordinary person. This figure wore a mask. This had that creepy vibe of something straight out of some horror movie, maybe even some masked killer from the Scream films. The feeling this wasn't just some guy in a costume crept in, though. The figure stood with an aggressive posture, almost like a predator. It seemed to be waiting to attack any moment. Panicked and aware of the danger, the group ran as fast as they could through the woods. Their footage cut out abruptly, and we never find out what happened next. Was it a person, a creature, or a staged prank? We don't know. The uncertainty of it is what makes the whole thing so terrifying. What's your opinion about this terrifying creature? This group of friends was out in the woods, surrounded by trees, the crackling sound of a campfire, and the usual good vibes that came with a night of chilling outdoors. Everyone was having fun and felt relaxed until one of them, Alexis, got up to use the restroom. 20 minutes go by, and she still didn't come back. That's when everyone got a little worried. So, they decide to go to search for her, figuring maybe she got lost on her way back. As they wandered through the woods trying to find their friend, though, they came upon something that stopped them in their tracks, a creepy wooden teepee. It's very bizarre to erect something like that out in the middle of nowhere, right? Out of curiosity, when they went near it, they saw something shocking. There, to a tree, was unconscious Alexis tied like a hostage. Panic started creeping in, and they were all fighting in their minds about what they do next, how they are to get her out of this place. Then, while trying to get closer for a rescue attempt, things go from terrible to absolute nightmare. Out of nowhere comes some totally bizarre creature crawling toward them. And I'm not talking about your average animal. This thing was like a twisted humanoid, hunched over on all fours, but it was huge, with limbs bending in all the wrong places. Look at the creature closely. Looks like a person bent over, but way more distorted and unnatural. It was crawling, almost gliding, and it had more than 4 hands and legs. Some might say it is a skinwalker, others say it is some kind of alien, but whatever it was not human. The whole scene is creepy. And then, the video cuts. Just like that, without any answers. The friends are gone, and the creature's mystery is still unsolved. What do you think it was? Something out of this world or just the stuff of nightmares? Arizona woods. It's one of those cold nights in Arizona, the kind where the wind is rustling the leaves and everything is eerily silent. A guy, just cruising around in his RV, is stopped by a woman screaming for help from the woods. It's late, and he least expects to hear someone in trouble, especially this far from civilization. His heart starts racing. He grabs his camera, thinking maybe he can help, or at the very least capture what's going on. He steps outside, following the screams deeper into the trees, but the further he walks, the more the feeling that something's off settles in. To his surprise, there's no sign of a woman, just the sounds getting louder, more frantic. His guts telling him something's wrong, and rightfully so. Just when he's almost pushing, he sees something behind the trees. It is not a lady, it is a man in a crouching posture, hiding behind the boughs, waiting for him. The whole scream show was just a trap to bring him out. Just then, the RV guy runs back to the safety of his RV, slamming the door shut, but he knows he's not out of the woods yet. That's when the real terror sets in. He hears the unmistakable crack of a gunshot. Someone's trying to kill him, and it's only a matter of time before they try again. His heart's pounding in his chest as he tries to think clearly. Just when he is to catch a little breath, the jarring alarm of his RV's bay door pierces the stillness. He can't resist checking it out despite every red flag that tells him to stay inside. The fear of not knowing what is out there is worse than the fear of going outside. But what he does not know is that opening of that door is going to be his biggest mistake yet. What do you think the attacker was, and what was its intention? Chainsaw Massacre. It was supposed to be a thrilling camping trip in a haunted forest. One of those adventures where the eerie atmosphere makes it all the more exciting, right? But things took a terrifying turn. It was in the middle of the night, when the campers had settled by the fire and were hearing all sorts of strange noises, branches snapping, distant whispers, footsteps in the darkness, and some kind of motor whirring. But nothing could have prepared them for the blood-chilling sound that came next, the roar of a chainsaw. The sound of a motor whirring was coming from this. As its sound grew louder, the campers understood that it was coming straight for them, cutting through the woods with an almost determined ferocity. They started filming right away, hoping to capture the source of this strange noise. What could it be? A hunter? A prankster? Something much worse? The chainsaw's roar soon became deafening, and before they knew it, the chainsaw sliced through the fabric of their tent like a hot knife through butter. There was no time to think, only time to run. They ran, fear driving each step as they tore through the dense forest, desperate to flee whatever or whoever was behind them. Was it a madman lurking in the woods, driven by some twisted urge? Or something more sinister, a being tied to the dark history of the haunted forest itself. Whatever it was, the intention seemed clear: terror. Whoever, or whatever, was behind that chainsaw was out to strike fear into the hearts of those who dared disturb the haunted woods. Luckily, these campers got out of that unharmed. Scene stalker. Deep in the Pine Barrens, a camper ventures off on his own for what he thinks will be a quiet 48-hour escape. What he didn't know was that his trip would quickly become a nightmare. The woods were eerily quiet when he arrived, and though the peacefulness was nice at first, that sense of calm quickly faded when he realized something wasn't right. He's got nothing but a flashlight and his wits for one night in the darkness. Trees tower above him, casting shadows on the trail like dark fingers reaching out to snare him. Everything is as it should be at first, until something felt off. He feels it, the someone, or something, lurking just behind. He freezes in his tracks, heart pounding, and spins around, shining his flashlight everywhere. But there's nothing. At first he thought it was probably his mind playing tricks, but deep inside he knows he is not alone. The feeling of being watched does not fade. Instead, it intensifies. He walks, but then stops each couple of 100 feet to look through the trees for movement, waiting for something to spring out. Suddenly, without any warning, a shrill scream shatters the night. From far back in the woods, loud and unearthly, as if it comes from inside the woods. It's not the kind of scream a human would make. It's the kind of sound that makes your blood run cold. His heart nearly skips a beat, and without thinking, he starts running for his life. Unseen, the presence closes in around him, but he can't even look back. We hope he made it back home safely. And finally, it's time to share an exclusive bonus clip with you. This family was driving through a remote forest in Russia, enjoying the peaceful surroundings of the wilderness. As they continued their journey, something unusual caught their attention in the distance. The father, noticing the strange sight, instinctively slowed the car down to get a clearer view. The family watched, their curiosity growing as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The camera captured an unsettling image of a creature in the distance, its appearance sending a chill through the air. The atmosphere grew tense as the family was unsure of what to do next. The father, sensing danger, quickly accelerated the car and left the scene, prioritizing the safety of his family. They were shaken by the experience, but relieved to be moving away from whatever they had just witnessed in the forest. But what do you think they just saw there? Tell us in the comment below. And that's the end of this video, but not the chills. Watch the one to continue the feel.